Why was that little tiny winged kaiju looking for Kafka in the first place? That, my wonderful viewers, is the question we are going to be looking at today. Now, Betty, you say, you've gone over this before. You know what? I have. But it's been a while. And this question is still gnawing on the back of my head. And shout out to Redditor LagKills24 for getting me started on this again. So, about a week before this video was filmed, LagKills posted on the Kaiju number 8 subreddit a bunch of really interesting Kaiju number 8 theories running all over. But the number one question theory that he brought up was the questions about the origins of Kaiju number 8. And I'll just read this real quick. The theory that LagKills24 posted was Kaiju number 8 was created by Kaiju number 9 and is being rebellious like number 10. It's not too wild to think that number 8's reasoning could be as simple as a kid wanting to be on his own. Number 8 and number 9 could have just gotten into a father and son fight, or maybe 9 and 8 are brothers and got into a dispute that caused them to go their separate paths. However, it seems that number 9 doesn't know too much about Kaiju number 8. And then LagKills went on to ask for other people's theories, and that led to me just kind of typing out all of my thoughts as they've condensed so far in the series. Now, just before I get into my theory, let's remember what happened way back in Chapter 1. Kafka and Reno were working at the Kaiju body cleanup site, cleaning up that salamander Kaiju that Mina had blasted on the very first page of Chapter 1. And just as they're about to leave for the day, a Yoju pops out of the ground or out of the corpse and attacks them both. Kafka and Reno defend each other, there's some noble sacrifices made, and then Mina shows up, blasts the Yoju. Both Kafka and Reno were reasonably severely injured in the fight, and they wind up in the hospital. And while they're in the hospital discussing life plans and everything, and Kafka decides to try one more time for the defense force. As soon as he makes this decision, that little flying kaiju, who I'm going to call Little Guy from here on out, shows up, psychically says, "I found you," and then crawls in to Kafka's mouth, whereon Kafka transforms into Kaiju number 8, and the whole series happens. So, in response to this post on Reddit, this is what I typed out. I'm going to be expanding a little bit on what I actually typed out, but here it is. Okay. Here's one possibility, one theory, very much like what LagKills put in point number 1, but with a twist. First, I see Kaiju number 8 as the combined power and experience of two entities. Kafka, of course, and Little Guy, that tiny winged kaiju with the bug eyes and the human hands that we saw at the start. So from here on out, I'll be referring to the actual kaiju in this situation as Little Guy. So, what if Little Guy's origin is as some spawn of Kaiju number 9, but instead of having an adult intelligence, as we've seen the rest of Kaiju number 9 spawn having, Kaiju number 8 is a child intelligence, a toddler stage or younger mentality, still with human levels of intelligence and the ability to learn, but a child. Maybe Little Guy was rejected by Kaiju number 9 as being unfit for anything. Maybe Little Guy was simply a failure. Of course, maybe he's not connected to Kaiju number 9 at all, but we don't know. Personally, I have this whole different set of theories. I'm not going to go fully down that rabbit hole, but the concept is that in the original battle with Kaiju number 6, that Kaiju number 6 was one of Kaiju number 9's early attempts at a better Kaiju, and once Hikaru Shinomiya had exhausted herself, Kaiju number 9 snuck in and absorbed her via her suit, but Kaiju number 9 hadn't mastered the process yet, so all he managed to get was her memories and her will. And I've got an entire theory about the reason that Little Guy rebelled against Kaiju number 9 was that Little Guy inherited the last fragment of Hikaru Shinomiya's will to protect humanity. But that aside, we have this small helpless kaiju in a world full of things that want to kill and or eat it. It happens to be at the site of the kaiju cleanup, kaiju attack, and witnesses Kafka not just saving, but mindfully caring for Reno, and Reno reciprocating that care. Here is safety, and in Little Guy's little child mind, safety for him. These two humans take care of each other. Why can't they take care of him? Now, little guy was born with all of his parasitic kaiju instincts to merge, and therefore the next logical step for him is to merge with the older, more experienced, and more nurturing Kafka. And now, little guy has tapped into Kafka's brain and has access to his emotions and his intelligence. So friendship with Reno being one of the strongest elements in this moment. Reno was essentially ride or die with Kafka from the get-go, and Kafka appreciated that. So little guy now sees Reno as a friend and protector and someone to be cared for as well. In that case, kill Kaiju then becomes simply the logical interpretation of Kafka's will to protect his friends, Reno included, and we see that in Kafka's mind state when battling the Director General. Then, as their relationships progresses, the beloved friend Reno expresses horror at the wild transformations as they exit the hospital. Horror that Kafka echoes. Little guy, this child mind, takes the lesson and internalizes it. The base body is okay, but random transformations are bad. And little guy never makes with the tentacles again. But the stress of the transformation of size has caused, now remember we're still back in chapter 1, or in chapter 2, this causes Kaiju number 8, the Kaiju number 8 body to overheat. And just like Kaiju number 10, Kaiju number 8 needs to vent steam to get rid of excess heat. Kafka doesn't know how to do that, but little guy has the instincts and starts projecting those instincts, and Kafka interprets that as needing to pee. So little guy vents steam from Kaiju number 8's nipples, utterly disgusting both Kafka and Reno, and horrifying Kafka. And little guy takes the lesson. Venting steam is bad. And Kaiju number 8 never vents steam again, despite visibly overheating during the fight with Director General Shinamaya. All the while, Kafka's driving motivation to protect his friends manifests as killing Kaiju. When Kaiju number 8 kills the Kaiju that is threatening the girl thanks him. Reno looks on in admiration. Kafka, and therefore little guy, gets a wash of raw dopamine in that moment that sends their hearts soaring. A very tired little guy releases the transformation, and Kafka changes back to human form. This causes even more dopamine, more joy, more approval from both Kafka and Reno. Little guy is learning not necessarily what Kafka and Reno want him to learn, but what he learns from their reactions. The next time we see Kafka is eating. And that's the next time we see Kaiju number 8, Kafka is eating. As if little guy slipped out to share the food, share this pleasant experience. But Reno shows up, scolds Kafka, and when Kafka changes back, they all share the joy of their admittance to the second stage of the test. Little guy, bit by bit, learns to hide, but the concepts of Reno being a friend caretaker are being traced deeper and deeper into his awareness. During the training arc, Reno is caring for them again, and once again Kafka fulfills his desire to protect by killing a Kaiju. This brings more praise and friendship from Reno. Then the training arc where the friendship with Reno, the view of Reno as a caretaker, is only made stronger. Now, when Kaiju number 8 first fought Kaiju number 9, we all thought that was Kafka turning feral to protect Reno. But if you're looking at it from the perspective of this theory, Kaiju number 8 was showing off moves in that fight that Kafka would never have been able to have dreamt of or practiced before this. His elbow split apart and he did a rocket punch. And just like the steam from the nipples, that had to have been little guy in control. Again, kill a Kaiju, get a dopamine rush from seeing Reno alive. Reno, even battered by Kaiju number 9, is still trying to protect Kafka, little guy, still enforcing that mental connection. The fight against the Yojubon base, even more reinforcement. We kill Kaiju to protect our friends no matter the cost. That's the lesson little guy is learning. Then the fight against the Director General. Yes, the Director General is a human and a member of the Defense Force, but little guy was only feeling the presence of Kaiju number 2. And when little guy took over, after Kafka lost the fight, that Kaiju number 2 was what little guy was trying to get rid of. Little guy had been marinating for an entire 24 hours at this point in Kafka's belief that their friend caretaker Reno hated them and they would no longer be able to protect their friends. Little guy was hungry, terrified, dejected, and right now, right here in front of them, he sees a Kaiju. And that dopamine rush, that feeling of good, of right, of praise, of seeing Reno again, always comes after killing the Kaiju. So in this moment, in this fight with the Director General, when little guy takes over from the despondent and exhausted Kafka and What he's doing here when he talks to Kafka in the Mindscape seems to be saying, according to this theory anyway, don't worry, you rest, I'll kill the kaiju, Reno will come back and be our friend again, everything will be fine. Only, remember, in this theory, little guy is still a child mentally, so all that comes out is kill kaiju. Now, during the battle with the ants, Kafka thought it was only his own fear that was preventing transformation. However, his fear is little guy's fear, and Kafka had been stewing little guy in the fear that they would kill their friends, that they would kill Reno if they transformed. Yes, Kafka's fear was the trigger, but it was little guy who was preventing the transformation in this theory. The last time little guy had transformed, while Kafka was that scared of hurting someone, Kafka had stabbed them in the core. How is little guy supposed to know that Kafka won't do that again? That hallucination Kafka had of stabbing Kokoro in the heart might have been little guy trying to communicate with him, something along the lines of little guy saying, hey, how do I know you won't do this to me again if we transform now? Then, when Kafka gets over his fear, little guy has the confidence to transform again. And of course, at the end of that fight, after they've killed the kaiju, after they've defeated the ants in kaiju number 9, but before the main body shows up, Kafka gets that dopamine rush, the approval so strong from Director General that causes a wash of joy so hard that he starts crying. And then, of course, the sense of failure that comes after that comes from failing to kill the kaiju. So we just have this being pounded over again and again and again to little guy. Kill the kaiju, get the dopamine rush. So that's my current theory. Little guy is a child mind that is slowly growing and learning about the world from Kafka, from Kafka's responses. Now, what that's going to manifest as, I don't know. But what do you think, my wonderful viewers? Do you think the little guy is behaving like he does because he is, after all, just a child slowly growing into intelligence and sapience? Leave a comment below telling me what you think of that theory. Hit that like and subscribe button, and peace out, my wonderful viewers.